Moving on to the quarterbacks, let's jump into Justin Herbert. This was a guy we ranked as a 3-star, a dude that we never saw. He was a multi-sport athlete. I think he got hurt maybe between his junior and senior year. So even if we would have seen him at a camp, we didn't. And Oregon just kind of took him, and we just viewed it as them taking a local kid. And they were kind of on a string there of rough quarterback takes after Marcus Mariota. Gorney, the buck stops with you on this one. What do you remember? I mean, did you just put on the film of him playing in Eugene and figure this is a 3-star?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it came down to. He missed part of his junior season, I think half, with a knee injury. He was hurt and out for that part. He didn't go to any camps. He didn't play on any 7-on-7 teams that I remember. And there are some 7-on-7 that, go to events, but he wasn't around. Quiet kid. Didn't talk a lot, didn't have a lot of offers, looked good on film, had a big-time arm. There's no doubt about that, and was a big kid that looked good. But, tape can be deceiving sometimes, especially when he's playing competition near Eugene, Oregon. So, this was a thing where he looked good. You put a 3-star ranking on him, and then you look like an idiot a few years later because he's so good. But, he wasn't anywhere. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't play any elite competition, and so this was definitely a miss.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the 7-on-7 factor. The infrastructure that is in Oregon right now at 7-on-7 and the big team out there, it wasn't there at that time. Do you think if he was coming out now, I mean, he's a super quiet kid anyway, but don't you think he probably would have been involved and would have seen him more if he was coming through in 2020 instead of 2016?
Yeah, it's interesting because now every quarterback plays 7-on-7 if they're quiet or loud or whatever. But he was a kid who grew up in Eugene. His family were Oregon season ticket holders. Once he got that offer, I don't know if he would have been all that interested in traveling up and down the coast playing 7-on-7 every weekend. He just doesn't seem like that type. And that has really been kind of the question heading into the draft is he kind of a locker room leader? Is he vocal enough to command an NFL team? All those kinds of things. And, really the question is he almost too smart and nerdy to be an NFL quarterback? I mean, that's really what we're asking. So I don't know. I mean, a lot of, Josh Rosen played 7-on-7 every weekend, and he was a pretty big nerdy kid. So it would have been interesting to see if FSP or even one of the Seattle teams, or really even one of the California teams, kind of went up and snagged him and flew him around every weekend to play, because that's kind of how it goes with 7-on-7 out here. But he was a Eugene kid. He wanted to go to Oregon his whole life. Once he got the offer, it was pretty much over. His brother has followed him there now. He's a tight end. So I don't know if he would have been really this big-time camp guy and flying all around the country to play 7-on-7 either.
Mike, I mean, I'm sure maybe you took a peek at his film at the time. Do you remember at all? Anything about it? Because, I mean, he kind of came out of nowhere. He didn't really have a bunch of offers, and when he committed, we had to rank him.
Yeah, he was a tall, skinny, awkward-looking kid, put up big numbers. But again, the level of competition, there's just no way to see. It's funny, you see these guys now, and then you realize you missed on them, and then you see the next kid who looks just like him, which to me is Jay Butterfield, going to the same school, and then you're like, okay, we're not going to do this twice. We're not going to miss on this kid. And then, that kid probably won't pan out. So you can't overreact to this stuff. You just have to and I'm not saying Jay Butterfield's career is over. He hasn't even played yet, but you just can't overreact to that stuff.
That's what I always say. We had this conversation about somebody put out a study saying, teams don't like tall cornerbacks anymore because all the cornerbacks getting drafted in last year's draft were 5'10". And it's like, well, it's because there weren't any good tall cornerbacks. I mean, I feel like we jump to trends too much in this industry sometimes, where if something happens in one draft, we decide that's the rule going forward, but the rule will change next year when all the quarterbacks or all the corners are 6'2",
All right. So
look at Zach Allen is similar, right?
Yeah, but I mean, he bounced around and went to Wyoming. So, I mean. Josh Allen.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It's just one of those things where you just, you don't get enough evaluation of them. We never saw Carson Wentz. So, these guys just obviously go into the right system and they mature and become, excellent quarterbacks. And, but then you do look for guys like that, it's just hard to find them. Quarterback is tough. There's just no doubt about it. It's very difficult.